I'm here with Johnny Miller, who is a breathwork practitioner, and he's spoken to us before about how he works as a political journalist. He works in areas of conflict. He's been in Syria, he's been in Ukraine, and then he went to Bali and he learned to become a breathwork practitioner, which had profound effects on his life and helped him deal with some health issues that he had. And I wanted to talk more about that mind-body connection, because I remember you said that you got diagnosed with extremely bad IBS, and you also said that you went to doctor after doctor, and I think, am I right in thinking it was related to stress as well?
Stress and trauma, yeah.
So, and I know in the past you have personally mentioned to me a lot of very interesting books, so perhaps you can tell us all about it. And I just wanted to talk about that connection, because I think so many, and I know I've had a few issues here and there myself, and my husband has, and you go to the doctor and they go, no, there's nothing, I don't know what's wrong, I don't know why you're having those symptoms. And then you're sort of made to feel as if you're sort of making it up, as if you're imagining it. And but you are having very uncomfortable symptoms, and I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, I think I've said to you before that every social event I go to, or party I go to, I always end up speaking to somebody who has exactly that experience, whether it's gut problems or problems with other part of their body.
And so what have you learnt about that in in the course of everything that you've experienced and your breath work?
So for anybody going through physical illnesses in which the doctors can't explain what is wrong, I really recommend the works of Gabor Mate.
Right.
He's a hugely famous Canadian physician. He's wrote a seminal book on addiction, actually, but now one of his most recent books is When the Body Says No, the Costs of Hidden Stress.
The cost of hidden stress.
He's an incredibly famous figure now in terms of trauma work.
Right.
He's one of the leading people in the world. And he's a fantastic speaker as well.
Gabor Mate.
Gabor Mate, fantastic writer as well. So he tells wonderful stories.
I do think stress causes so many health issues.
Absolutely, and as he says that, he's a medical physician, and he says.
Is he like he's a doctor, like a GP?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's not a paleontologist, palliative care.
Right, palliative care, right, yeah.
And so he says that most of the medical schools don't teach their doctors about trauma.
No.
So he'll say to his audience, how many people here, when they have a medical issue, when they go to a specialist, does that specialist say, well, how's your mental health? How's your stress? None of them ask these things.
Yeah.
I went to many gastroenterologists about my IBS. None of them said, how's your mental health? I would have told them, well, I've just got back from Syria. I've got girlfriend issues. I'm hyper stressed. I'm missing deadlines. Maybe that's why your tummy's bad.
Yeah.
And they don't even ask these things.
I mean, the work that you do, that must be incredibly stressful and frightening. I mean, you hear about soldiers going into conflict and they get PTSD, and some of them can never get back into who they were before, and they have incredible mental health issues afterwards, and surely working in a war zone must do that to you as well.
It does, but it's kind of a sexy story, if you like. But I mean, there's so many people. You don't have to be a war correspondent to suffer these severe illnesses. So many of these illnesses come from childhood trauma as well, and any kind of childhood trauma stays with you, or can stay with you for the rest of your life. For me, it wasn't even just the war work; it was the missing the deadlines. It was
missing the deadlines.
Missing deadlines, but
that's what got to you.
Absolutely, and relationship problems, family issues.
Yes.
Coming back from.
I would have thought it would be a bomb falling.
Well, it is that. So when you're there, you're running on adrenaline, and then you suddenly come back. Then it all hits you. So it's that as well.
Yes.
But I don't want to say that. So many people suffer these illnesses. You don't have to, be a soldier or whatever to suffer these illnesses.
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody can have all these serious illnesses, and it can be stress, all types of stresses. Some people working in the city and they're worried about their marriage.
Yeah.
Or that can be huge.
Or money. I mean, look.
Money, absolutely.
I mean, gosh.
Absolutely.
I mean, how stressful is that?
Absolutely.
Right now.
Absolutely. These things are just as stressful as being in a war zone, frankly.
Yeah.
And so the work of Gabor Mate is so important now. And one of the reasons, for example, you might not know about him, it's not necessarily pushed by the TV channels, etc. There's no money to be made in alternative therapy, or not much.
Right. So he talks about alternative therapies.
Well, exactly. So of course you go to a doctor, and the doctor can't just, well, how do you deal with your stress? They can't give pills out, or they can't do surgery. There's not much money in it.
Right.
So this is perhaps why you haven't heard of Gabor Mate, and when you look him up, you'll see how famous he is and how loved he is around the world. He's a big proponent of ayahuasca now, actually, strangely. And which makes him sound like some kind of hippie, but he's a very serious medical doctor.
Right.
And
does he talk about breathwork?
So breathwork is part of these alternative therapies. So the breathwork that I do takes your mind into the subconscious.
Right.
So it's some
into
people,
the subconscious.
Yeah. So some people some people do breathwork and say, well, it's a bit like doing drugs.
Right.
It really
or hypnotherapy,
changes.
because because that's exactly what hypnotherapy. Because I was having spoken to Zoe Clues, and this is where we are, by the way. We're at Johnny works in Zoe's practice, and she talks about the conscious and the subconscious all the time, and how she accesses it. So you're doing a similar thing with your breathwork.
Absolutely. And so taking the mind into the subconscious can help you realize things, realize underlying trauma, underlying stresses. And so for myself, realizing I was getting constantly sick because I was stressing myself out, and realizing what these triggers were, and so changing my lifestyle to stop those triggers, hence curing my IBS.
So you cured your IBS?
Effectively, there's occasional flare-ups here or there, but now I know what it is.
And you know what to do.
Exactly.
Do you do the breath work every day for yourself?
Well, it's quite the kind of serious breathwork that I do, conscious connected breathwork. It's quite hard to do by yourself.
You need a breathwork practitioner as well.
You can do it. I mean, people have asked me, can I do this myself? And you can try, but it's just quite hard. It's hard to take yourself all the way to the subconscious mind without somebody else there. But theoretically, you can do it by yourself, absolutely.
So how do you manage your stress and keep your IBS at bay if you can't really do that yourself?
It's not necessarily the kind of breathwork that I do. That is an hour-long journey set to music, which really is a journey of the mind, a journey into the subconscious. And I think we said in another video we did about how there's huge releases of emotion, of tears, all the rest of it. But breathwork also was a gateway for me of understanding that my physical problems were connected with my mind and the way I was living my life.
Right.
And so breathwork is fantastic for, first of all, helping to realize the mind-body connection.
Yeah, everybody talks now about the gut-mind connection because the gut is the second brain.
Absolutely. So there'll be many people watching this video who know exactly what that experience is like. Going to doctor after doctor and saying there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah. And
so realizing that it's to do with repressed trauma, stress. That's the reason, most likely, that is causing these physical illnesses.
Yes.
And so therefore it's making the changes. For me, it was about making some changes, even just the changes of thinking of when I'm getting stressed. Just
and to deal with stress. I mean, stress does cause so many things, and it does affect us. And I suppose, you start early in your life getting stress, and then as you get older, that stress accumulates, and eventually it's going to come out and get you, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So it's having all those tools to know how to do that, and it is amazing the different things that stress can do. I mean, it can give you the obvious. It can cause depression. It could cause panic attacks. It can cause anxiety. Can cause IBS, but it can also cause all other kinds of gut problems.
Absolutely, yeah, and also trauma. Repressed trauma as well. Some people can think, well, I'm fine, there's nothing bad, and then realizing sometimes that there has been traumatic things either in their childhood or recently. Some people,
I know some people don't even acknowledge how much they've actually been through, because perhaps to them, you know, it's normal.
Absolutely, and the whole British stiff upper lip idea.
Yeah.
You know, and boys aren't supposed to cry and all the rest of it.
Yes.
But so we keep all these things in, and that's when you're doing conscious connected breathwork, all these things come out that are released.
So sometimes do people come to you because they feel they're not feeling quite right, and then in the course of the breath work they discover things that they've been holding on to that they didn't know that they were?
Absolutely. Some clients will come and I'll say, what's coming up for you at the moment? And they'll say this or that. But you can't hide from the subconscious mind. You can't hide from the breath.
Yeah.
And you have this journey of, well, okay, this is what's really been playing on my mind. And so many people, as Gabor Mate says, that so much illness is also caused by not listening to the true story of your life. So many people are in relationships perhaps that aren't right for them.
Right.
Or being in that relationship and not acting in the right way.
Right.
Or in jobs that don't suit them.
Right.
And listening to the subconscious mind really tells you the true story of your life. And if you're living a different story of your own truth, that's also when physical illness can come out.
That is so true, isn't it? If you're not being true to yourself, and you know, I always think that we all have a little inner voice that tells us what we should be doing, but how often do we not listen to it?
Absolutely.
And I always think, you know, I sometimes hear an inner voice and I don't listen to it, and then I end up hurting myself or doing something that makes me deeply unhappy. So there's a lot to be said for that inner voice.
You know it in your gut, right?
Yeah.
That's the phase, right? So you know it in your gut. Or
I always feel everything in my gut. If I'm nervous, I feel it in my gut.
And we've known these things for centuries.
Yes.
How long we've had these phases for centuries.
Yeah.
You know, the whole idea of heartbroken, etc. So,
Yeah.
and so we know that there's a huge connection here, and you know it in your gut.
Yeah.
And really listening.
But when your heart is broken, when you lose someone, you know, either through them passing or a relationship breaks up, you feel physical pain.
Absolutely.
It's actually unbelievable. You actually feel as if your heart is being torn in two.
Yeah. And that's very much, you know, breathwork comes from an Eastern tradition, and we in the West always treat one organ at a time. That's the problem with Western medicine. You go to problems with the stomach, you go to a gastro specialist. Problems with the head, you go.
I always think that.
But in Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine, for example, so that Chinese medicine, they say that if there's an illness in the body, it's because of a lack of balance.
Exactly, and I always think that quite odd that we have such specialists in an organ or in one thing, because it just seems to me that the whole body is connected, and you can't isolate your liver from the rest of your body, or your heart from the rest of your body, because everything is connected. So I've always liked a functional approach, where a holistic approach, where the whole body is taken into account. And when you take the whole body into account, you have to take the mind into the account, and you've got to take stress. So I mean, I personally am a big fan of breathwork. So very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you'll find Johnny at Zoe Clues and Associates. And I've often spoken about Zoe before, so that's where you'll find Johnny.